George Kirby had a rough injury season in 2025. When he returned from injury, he had an overinflated ERA, but a bolstering K per 9 and a career high. I'm here to tell you why you should be drafting Steele in 2026.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics. I'm Matthew Ahne, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now Sports Podcasting Network. Thank you, everydayers and new listeners, for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm a longtime fantasy baseball analyst with over 20 years of fantasy baseball knowledge, and the reason I do this show is to share my knowledge with you. Whether you're watching or listening, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. It really helps out the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Now, I got a really good show for you. I feel like I open up with this every single episode, but it's the truth. I bring you good shows every single day. But this is an interesting round going in early ADP. You know, we're dealing with round 7, and there's some question marks. If we were drafting today, we have some decisions to make. And, you know, I'm here to help you through them. You know, Riley Green, what is his outlook? We've seen him 2.5 seasons now, one with, you know, okay power numbers and better batting average, and then one season with great power numbers and, you know, okay batting average along with others. We have Joe Ryan, you know, staying healthy most of the season and having insane, K numbers. And then you have Freddie Freeman, who, you know, even though feel like he had a bad season, he really didn't. And we'll get into that and why, you know, I'm still picking Freddie Freeman, but and why I love the price. But we're going to dive into the first name on the list. And, you know, we're going to start in descending order. And this is with pick 61 off the board, I believe. Right? Yes, pick 61. I apologize. And this is a good one. Bryce Turang had a phenomenal year. I actually got to give it to Dom. He really called this year. Really, really impressed. Him in Milwaukee as a whole, just unexpected, really good season. 584 at bats, 97 runs, 28 doubles, 2 triples, 18 bombs, 81 ribs, 24 stolen bases, batted 288. So almost 2020, which is great. It reminds me of like a Durang kind of type season. You know, I truly think this is good. The only thing that I feel is an issue with Durant, I'm about to say Durant, but Turang's game is possibly the Ribby's opportunity. You know, it's ultimately like a career high. I mean, on top of that, you look at it and it's just like, okay, is the opportunity is going to be there next year? And if he gets more stolen bases, then, you know, that's going to equate to less Ribbies at this point. But the runs are going to be fine. You know, it's one of those things where it's going to be a trade-off. Drafting him in the 7th round, I'm not really mad at, in all honesty. I look at it like this, you know, he provides enough value at the second base position where you're just like, okay, cool. I could get everything I need, decent amount of power, definitely stolen bases, average, and I could kind of conclude on some things as well. Well, is the batting average repeatable? Well, I would say yes. 10% walk percentage, 22.8% strikeout percentage. That is actually a really good ratio. You look at just like, you know, 2025, which is past year, that was that. Look at 24, you know, K percentage is 17% with a walk percentage of 8.1. It's still in the ball game. It's still within the range. So the positive regression kind of just kept going essentially. And I think that, you know, this batting average is pretty much here to stay as long as he keeps doing what he's doing, making good contact on the ball, about 8%, you know, a little bit more. And, you know, he can definitely cross the threshold of 20 home runs, you know, hard hit percentage though, which is wild, 47.4%. If you can find a way to make better contact on the ball, home run numbers could even hit 25. So, you know, if he makes adjustment in his swing, you know, not just, you know, for contact, but just getting a little bit more quality contact on there, we could see an influx and maybe see that 24 home runs. And that could be real interesting, and him going 24-30 with thrust him up in rankings here. Is there that ability? Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, hard hit percentage of 47.4. Barrel percentage comes in with the quality of contact. So I mean, if he's making better contact with the ball, barrel percentage should go up along with the hard hit percentage. Will equate to more home runs. Average exit velocity also screams that too. When he hits a fastball, it's 91.1 miles per hour on average. It's incredible. There is upside with Turang. I think this is a fair price, and you're not getting the higher end, air quotes, second basemen that are getting completely gobbled up at the top. And he's a good option going into the 7th round. And why wouldn't you draft him here? Turang definitely poses to be valuable for all fantasy teams, and I definitely am not overlooking him. But let's move on. Let's talk about Freddie Peralta, another good pitcher in this draft, and quite honestly, a guy that I think is reliable for strikeouts. And it's time and time again. 176 innings pitched, 204 strikeouts, 2.7 ERA, which is ridiculous, and a 107 WHIP. Now the ERA is phenomenal. I don't think it's repeatable in all honesty. You look at his FIP, it's more like a 3.64, which has really just been where his ERA really has been. So he's gotten some luck on him. What is FIP essentially? FIP is, if you have an average defense behind you, this would be your actual ERA. Between 270 and 364 is kind of more of like the mean and the real kind of ERA. Definitely still a career year, even with that. We'll get into that in a minute. But I mean, even if he finishes at 3.5 at this price, at pretty much SP2 on borderlines of SP3, it's a steal in my opinion. He's on a really good team that's just trending in the right direction, and is just having really good numbers that are definitely worth an SP2 on your team. So I'm drafting Freddie Peralta literally everywhere. I think he's great in those regards. So he's mine. He's been healthy last couple of years. 23 had 30 starts, 24, 32. This past year, 25, and he had 33 starts. He's just been great with his health over the last couple of years. So ultimately, like, he's a name and a guy I want to count on year in and year out. In the last 3 years, over 200 strikeouts. So well done, sir. Definitely am going to be drafting him everywhere. And if I'm walking away with him as my SP2, I'm a happy camper. All the underlying stats just scream that this is continuing. The expected ERA is more like a 3.48, which I think I'm more willing to buy than the 3.64 that the FIP was showing. So if he finishes with 3.48, pitches, 180 innings, gets over 200 strikeouts, and has a low WHIP of anywhere from 1.0 to 1.20, I'm not mad at it. I think I got return on draft pick, especially at this price going in the 7th round. Absolute value on Freddie Peralta for 2026. 100% I'm going to draft. Next up is Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman, here's the thing, right? You drafted him, you paid a 1st round pick, and it did not feel great. It also came slower. I owned him last year, so I kind of know, what everybody's feeling. But, he didn't have a bad season. I mean, let me read off his stat lines. 556 at-bats, 81 runs, 39 doubles, 2 triples, 24 home runs, 90 ribs, 6 stolen bases, batted 295. Look, on paper, that's not great. That isn't, 1st round, 2nd round material. It's like 3rd, 4th round. But I mean, look, you're coming in after a year of 24 where you had 22 home runs. We're chasing 2023 numbers where you hit 29. Those days are probably behind us in terms of the power, and we'll get into that in a minute. But the average is still there. The runs and ribby upside is 100% there. The team is still great. Yeah, we saw a dip in that, but I mean, still 90 ribs ain't bad. 81 runs ain't atrocious. I mean, you really think about it, the only difference between him and Harper at this point is, the home run upside in Harper, and that's why Harper's going earlier, but there isn't much of a difference. And Freddie Freeman has the batting average to back it up. He's a career 300 hitter. So in all honesty, you're looking, okay, well, I can get Harper a couple rounds earlier, or I can get Freddie Freeman's a couple rounds later, and they're going to do similar things on phenomenal teams. I might leave Freddie Freeman in this aspect and maybe take the dip on the power upside because I'll be able to make it up somewhere else. And that's just a matter of preference for me. But ultimately, Freddie Freeman isn't washed. I'm not avoiding him any which way. I think he's going to be just fine. He just isn't as good. He isn't as good as he was in the past couple of years. And with that power upside going away, that is kind of just a thing. Look, he still makes good contact. Quality contact on that. Barrel percentage is 10.4%. It's not screaming elite at 13, 14, 15%. We're expecting him to hit 30 home runs. Hard hit percentage of 45.7% of the time. It's great combo. Again, supports him getting 24 home runs. I think that's, doable. He's going to get over 20. I think mid 20s is a fair expectation to him. Just that 30 range just isn't there. And we're seeing it 2 years in a row. You look at the walk to strikeout percentage, all looks great. Everything just says Freddie Freeman's going to be just fine. Draft him with confidence. Again, I think I'd pick him over Bryce Harper at this point because of value and, not, and safety. But coming up next, we're going to cover Joe Ryan and, can he bring down his ERA? I don't know. Should we be drafting Josh Hader and a closer now? And now that we're talking round 7, it's all coming up right after this. All right. So the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed a start of your game, you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has a live bet on everything from who will score for the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, new customers can get $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And all right, let's get back to things. I am excited to talk. I love Joe Ryan. I think he's a really good talent. I definitely am loving what he did on the mound this year. How to, is it repeatable, sustainable, etc.? Well, I'm going to cover that in a minute, but let's go over what he did this year, and then we'll break down everything else. 171 innings pitched, 194 strikeouts, a 3.42 ERA with a 103 WHIP. Phenomenal season from him. Career low in ERA, which is awesome, especially with second highest career season in strikeouts. But, the K per inning aspect of it is kind of down only a hair if you compare 23 number, but still better than 24. So it made some positive regression in that, and I'm okay with this. He looks good. The fact that he made 30 starts this year, fantastic. He stayed healthy, something that he hasn't really been doing and has been another issue with Joe Ryan. But this year stayed healthy and performed. The FIP screens 374, which should have been not as good as that, but I think you're splitting hairs at that point. It's just one of those things. And again, the expected ERA is right on par with the ERA at 346, which is 342 at the ERA. So everything I think is kind of on par. And I think that is a realistic, point of what he actually did on the season. Now we look a little bit lower. We see some negative regression ERA. I would say yes. And here's part of my issue with Joe Ryan in terms of the ERA aspect of it, and why I don't think he's right now has the ability to dip below, the 4 ERA, 3.4 ERA, which sets him aside from, being a higher end SP2. And honestly, I think he's more of an SP3 in my opinion. We'll get into that. But so here's the thing. He puts himself in a position where he can give up quality contact and give up home runs. Look, guys barrel against him 11.45%. That is not good. I'm talking about guys that hit in terms of a batter aspect. It's better than Freddie Freeman's home barrel percentage, and it's one of those things where it's right in between that sweet spot of being able to crush, make really good quality and crush. Then you mix it with a hard hit percentage of 41.9%. Now, for a hitter, that would be about league average, but you mix the two, and it poses to giving up home runs. The fact that also, too, he doesn't really produce a lot of ground balls to make up for the fact that he gives up quality contact and hard contact at that. He only produces ground balls 36.9% of the time, which also leads to higher ERAs when you're not producing ground balls at a fair rip. You would have told me 39, I would have given him more leniency and say, okay, we can make adjustments. But no, I don't think that we're going to see that from him. You also look at the average exit velocity, which is pretty much how hard his fastball gets hit, 90.2 miles an hour. That's not good. Fastball is one of the, is the main pitch that you hit and you hit it right. It's going over the fence. In fact, it has a 90.2 average exit velocity going with it. Hard hit percentage at 41.9% and barrel percentage of 11.5. It's not a good combo for a guy you want to count on for ERA. I still think he's a great pitcher. He's just, a guy that's going to pitch 3.5 to 3.75, in my opinion, in terms of ERA on the year. Still great, in terms of getting case per inning, things like that. So why he's still, an SP3 for me or a low end SP2. I just, for me, Joe Ryan still needs to prove a lot in those categories, or at least make me shut up, get a low threes ERA with this, and then he can become a statistical anomaly like Framber Valdez, who, if you were to look under the hood, you'd say, no, there's no way he's doing what he's doing every year. But, he does it. And it's just Joe Ryan hasn't proved that yet. So everything's pointing to everything I'm saying, unfortunately. So I think his ceiling is limited, but still a great talent. Let's move on. Let's talk about Josh Hader. Is it time to really start drafting a closer now? Well, here's the deal. I'm not mad at this one because Josh Hader going into last year was what top end closer for me. I think top 3. He got hurt at the end of the year. It's really about it. He killed me by getting hurt last year, but that's besides the point. But ultimately, Josh Hader had a good season, up until the injury. A question of if he's going to be back on time. I haven't seen anything that would stop him from that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but still was great. 52 innings, 76 strikeouts, 28 saves, a 2.05 ERA with a .85 WHIP. If he would have kept going and played the whole season, we would have saw 30 plus saves. He would have been fine. He probably would have got the ERA down under 2. Like, he's good. He's really good. Like, this is actually a steal. If I'm targeting a closer in earlier rounds, this is where I would start doing it, is Josh Hader. I think this is the right price for a closer, especially at his caliber. He fell. And I like players in this round, but if I have enough of the higher pieces and I think I could pull the trigger and now get the advantage back at a discount at saves, then I'll make the push. This is kind of the right price. If he goes higher than this round, then we're going to have to talk. Then we might have to say, okay, no, he's moving up. This then affects his value, and then therefore you're not going to get that return on that pick. But right now, let's see. Today, if we were drafting today, Hader would be a target of mine. Let's move on. George Kirby. Now, I understand he dealt with injuries. He missed a good chunk of the season. Only managed to pitch, 126 innings. And the ERA on the year, not great, 4.21. I get that. But the thing what I'm highlighting about him is the K per inning. Okay. You go back historically and look at George Kirby. And again, this is maybe a smaller sample size because of the innings, but I'm looking at it and I go, this is the first time he's finished with more strikeouts than he did innings pitched in his career, except for his rookie year, and it only beat it by 3. This one he beat it by 11, which is impressive and maybe a trend. So let's break it down. 126 innings pitched, 137 strikeouts, 4.21 ERA with a 1.19 WHIP. And honestly, the FIP was saying more like 3.37, so it's saying he's getting a little unlucky. The expected batting average against him, ERA against him is 3.88. We'll meet in the middle, and I'll take more of like a 3.5, and that also is based off of walk to strikeout percentage. Only walk guys 5.5% of the time. Strikeout guys 26.1%. That's massive. That is something that would say the ERA should have been lower, because even if he gets himself into trouble, he can get himself out of it. Produced ground balls 44.4%. I love that. Also helps him get out of trouble and should have suppressed the ERA, which is why like the FIP is honestly, a little bit more on the lower side. So I'm willing to incline and lean towards more of that number than that. And that's kind of how I'm guiding it. Really suppressed quality contact against him, only allowed a little bit under league average at 8.5%. We'd like to see that a little bit lower, but you go back a year before in 24 and there's no difference, but still mids 3.5 ERA. In 24, you go to 23, not really much of a difference. And then he had a low 3s ERA. So it's not far off. The hard hit percentage, that is a little high. It's at 43.9%. That's definitely up in comparison to last season. But again, something has to do with injuries. That is a big difference for us. So let's just keep an eye on that. But I think George Kirby's a steal if we're making the progression to get more strikeouts now. And then, just quantify that with suppressing the hard contact to go with it. George Kirby can be absolutely dangerous. He was a guy, honestly, going into drafts before he got the injury, was being a top, an SP1 for you. So, I mean, him coming at, almost at this range is a great price. I'm going to draft him here and draft the upside and play the game. I mean, this is one where you're going to play a ceiling floor. I mean, and it's not like there's much risk, getting him as your SB2 in this round. I think it's, kind of like a no-brainer as well. I think I'd still lean Hader in this round over Kirby to get because the value is just too outrageous. But Kirby's like a strong second consideration for this round. And if I have time, I'll give a priority. But coming up next, I got, Ben Rice and Jackson Merrill, and, even Riley Green at the end of this as to, how I'm handling them going into 2026. All right. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part, especially for the World Cup. That's why Game Time app is absolutely clutch. Finally, giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track prices that drop in real time, get alerts when great seats open up, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts power back in the hands of the buyer and makes going to World Cup actually realistic instead of impossible. You pull the app up and it lays out. The layout makes it super simple and easy to scroll through matchups and compare seats and views and make sure you're not sitting behind that pole. Pick a game, tap a section, and you have real tickets locked in minutes. It's a phenomenal. No confusion, no hunting or fine print to sort through. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets, every match, concert, or even event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go to Game Time today, and I promise you, I've been using this app way longer than I've worked for Locked On, and I could tell you right now, best app for buying tickets, hands down. All right, let's get back into it. Honestly, Ben Rice, catcher for, New York Yankees, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Sorry, I'm Yankee team, and it's one of those days. I apologize. It's what happens if you have, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. You just lose your mind. But as a decent year, 467 at bats, 74 runs, 28 doubles, 4 triples, 26 home runs, 65 ribs, batted 255. This is okay. I mean, I like the power numbers, but there is some holes. And there's also just the method of how I kind of draft catchers. So he ultimately played a full season. He gets his rest days because he's a catcher, etc. So, I mean, I'm not really, there. Everything under the sun screams, he should have, everything is realistic. If not, there should be some positive regression in batting average. Do I think that it's worth drafting him at this point? No, I still think it's too high to get a catcher. The 26-year-old going to be 27. I think he's going to be good, but is he this good? Is he worth picking over the upside of Jackson Merrill, Josh Naylor, Riley Green, for instance, just the 3 next bats going him? I think not. Even Jared Duran, I pick over him. Austin Riley's coming up. Byron Buxton's coming up in the next round. These are the guys that you're considering taking over if you pick Ben Rice. And I just don't see a path where that's going to help you be successful because those guys are going to outproduce. And therefore you're setting yourself up for failure to have advantage at catcher. It's a single hitting position that you're either going to put them in a catcher position or you're going to put them in UT. And you can get an outfield in any 3 slots and fill a hole on top of the UTs. It's a big difference for me. And also too, he's not playing every single game. It's just one of those things where you just have to take a step back and understand that he's not going to outproduce these guys, and therefore I'm not touching Ben Rice. Too rich for my blood. Let's keep it going. I will tell you when I draft a catcher, and it's still not happening. Let's move on. So about Jackson Merrill, the San Diego Padres outfielder. Look, he had a down year in comparison to what the upsides and expectations coming off of the brilliant 2024 season, where he finished with 24 home runs, 16 stolen bases, 90 ribs, and batted 292. Sophomore slump really kicked in. 440 at bats, 59 runs, 25 doubles, 6 triples, 16 bombs, 67 ribs, stolen base, and batted 264. That's a big difference. And honestly, you would call him a bust. But I'm here to tell you there's still hope for next year. Look, he barreled 13% of the time last year, which means the power just didn't show up. The hard hit percentage was at 42.9%. Okay, cool. Let's compare that to 24. Hard hit percentage was not really far off, maybe 1.5%. So to cross the home run threshold to get to where he was, not going to be much of a stretch for him, especially since the barrel percentage is so great. He does everything right. Now, in terms of batting average now, let's compare the year before to this year. This year, he struck out 22.4% and walked 6.8% in comparison to 2024, where he struck out only 17% and still only walked 4.9%. The 17% is unsustainable, and hence why we saw a negative regression in that, going from 17% to 22.4%, which is 5.5% pretty much. And the walk percentage now is kind of within range. So therefore, like, okay, are we going to expect a batting average from him of 290? I don't think so. Not unless the walk percentage improves or he has another outlining season at strikeout percentage. I think he needs to figure out the walk percentage to then counteract it. The OPS is still pretty good at 774, but still not, in the eights where it was making him super elite. So therefore, I think we need to figure that out. But ultimately, I think we're probably more in the 250 to 265 range in terms of batting average. I'm still not mad about. I want to see the stolen bases come back up and get to the double digits into the 15, range. Sprint speed still at 28, at 79th percentile, which is still phenomenal. Look, he just needs to work on a couple of things. I think sophomore slump is just one of those things. I think we'll bounce back. I think there's a fair price. I'm not picking him over Riley Green, but he's a strong second, and we'll talk about why. But we have Josh Naylor in between, and let's talk about Josh Naylor. Josh Naylor, getting traded over to the Marlins in the offseason from the Diamondbacks, had a good season. 543 at bats, 81 runs, 29 doubles, a triple, 20 bombs, 92 ribs, 30 stolen bases, and batted 295. Now, the home run number is actually the most surprising thing. In 24, he crushed it with 39 home runs. Didn't really have a lot of stolen bases, had like 6. For him to come back and have 20 home runs and 30 stolen bases is bonkers career high at age 28 is interesting. He definitely got the green light on Seattle a lot. He literally got 19 with them, which is bonkers. And then he pretty essentially attempted 32 stolen bases, even got caught twice when he was on Arizona. This is an interesting new stat for us. Is this something that is going to be, part of his game? I don't know. Unless this is the methodology of the Mariners, but I can't see that. I could probably I would probably put him more down for 55, for 15, not 55, 15 stolen bases, which is still phenomenal for him. I think the power should resurgence. We could talk about that. So, like, Josh Naylor as a whole, the barrel percentage was way down. So was a hard hit percentage. You go to the year before where he was absolutely crushing it. Barrel percentage was up at 8.4 and a 40.9 hard hit percentage. Definitely better. No explanation how he even hit 30 home runs, in all honesty. You go back to 23, where only hit 17. It's kind of the same, no real difference. So, we can expect, I think, from Naylor, which, again, the price is okay. Him being in the 7th round, if you've missed out on, the other first baseman, I'm willing to take a shot on him. But ultimately, for me, he's not a guy I'm truly drafting. So maybe I take back what I said before about drafting him over Jackson Merrill. But, Josh Naylor or Vinny Pasquantino going much later. I'm probably going to go with Vinny P. I like the upside better. I think the home run and batting average is definitely there on his side. So Josh Naylor is probably a pass for me in this round. So that's just really about it for me. Let's move on to Riley Green. Riley Green just had a really good year. Finally showed off why at one point he was the number 1 prospect in baseball. And I truly enjoyed watching him play this year. 36 home runs, 111 ribs, 84 runs, batted 258. Batting average took a dip, but looked incredible. Struck out a boatload more this year, too. There is some positives, there's some negatives, and what's repeatable, what's not. So if we stay with this batting profile, we're not going to see 280, 260 batting average. He's going to be probably more like anywhere from 240 to 255 batting average. Maybe we can meet in the middle, subtract maybe 4 or 5 home runs, and I'll take that for a batting average being in the 250, 260 range better. when a guy strikes out 30% of the time, it's kind of unsustainable to get a 258 batting average. A lot of luck is inquired there. So therefore, I think it's more closer to 240 if he keeps this kind of, plate approach. Um, I'm still going to draft him high, even if he gets a 240 batting average. If he's hitting 36 home runs to 40 home runs, getting the runs and ribs at this rip, he's worth it. Especially as your OF, 3 or for this matter, we're in the 7th round. So I'm loving it. I think this is an appropriate spot for him. So for me, I'm all about it. Let me pull up where he's coming off the board in terms of outfielder. So he's coming off the board at the 15th outfielder overall. So he's more like an OF2, a higher end OF2. Yeah, you look at the outfield kind of talent, you kind of have to, in all honesty. So I mean, outfielder's rough. So I misspoke there at OF3, but OF2, I will 100% take him here, and I probably will prioritize to draft him higher, in my opinion. Then again, how I draft outfielder, I get him early. So you'll see that when we start doing some mock drafts coming soon. So, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share the show because we truly love bringing it to you each and every single day. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get your local analysis on the national scale. Find MLB Game Night every game, every night on YouTube or on wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to check out the newsletter. Peace out, God.